Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the greatest podcast you just turned on. This is Comix Paradox, where we talk about alternate reality comic book tales from such publishers as DC and Marvel Comics, as well as others as time goes on. We'll be discussing things like what ifs and Elseworlds and just other general alternate takes on well-established characters and storylines. Joining me this week, we had a couple of guys. First up, we have Leo Pond.
Oh, you switched it up on me.
That's right. I know.
Yeah.
How's it going, Leo?
Going great. Excited to talk about this book. This is gonna be fun.
Oh, that's good. You're in the right place to do that then.
Oh yeah.
And next up, we have Justin Cooper.
Hello.
How's it going, Justin?
Oh, it's going great. Looking forward to talking some more alternate reality. So
Yes.
some Elseworlds from DC. It's always fun getting into these.
Yes, this is where we go past the normal realm of geekiness. Escapism isn't enough. We now need escapism from our escapism, gang. This week we are talking about a book that you've heard these guys express some excitement over. It's called Superman Kal. It was written by Dave Gibbons. You may know him from such things as
Rogue Trooper.
Martha Washington Goes to War, as well as being
Martha. Why did you say that name?
Why did you say that name? I'm sorry, I meant Mothra. She's behind you. Whip.
And now that movie got an Oscar.
Right. But he is also very well known as the illustrator and co-creator of Watchmen with Alan Moore, who is now usually credited as the original writer, as he is he has distanced himself from popular comics for the most part.
I bet he still gets that check.
I don't know that he does, actually, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to talk about Alan Moore. Dave Gibbons, however, very, very talented artist and certainly writer. This story, I think, will hopefully prove that statement to be true. And this was illustrated by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, which I'm not too familiar with a lot of stuff that he's done right off the bat. I don't know if you guys had gone out of your way to check out anything that he had done previously.
Absolutely. He's a legend in the business. A lot of the early Vampirella work, right? From like the old comics that you see that, like he was doing that. He there's so much stuff. I've seen like a lot of good comic art, and he was kind of a staple of the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like he's done a lot of Action Comics. Let's see. They show Flashpoint, Batman Volume 1, number 321.
Yep.
Obviously. Oh, he did Legends of the Dark Knight. He definitely did a lot of covers.
Yeah.
He did the cover to Batman versus Hulk.
That's so funny.
That's crazy.
And his style, it's as we talk about like other influences, it looks so much like Dave Gibbons' style in here. Like it really gave me pause because I was like, that's not Dave Gibbons, but it looks like it.
Yeah, that's fair. I did a double take myself a couple times. It's like, I wonder if he helped on some of this. Like,
that's what I was thinking.
Preliminary sketching, you know?
Oh, he did Venom from Legends of the Dark Knight.
Really?
Oh, great story. You guys covered that on Splash Pages.
Yeah, absolutely love that story.
Yeah, so clearly some very good credentials here we have going into this tale. This alternate tale of a survivor from the doomed planet Krypton, or as we'll find out, the doomed planet that we never learn the friggin' name of in this comic book.
Headcanon.
Headcanon. You know, bring what you know from the real world, what you've heard and read about Superman in the past, and just apply that to what you think might happen in the comic. Infant falls to Earth, raised by farmers, develops superpowers. You know what? I think the episode's done, guys. I covered it well. Hey, have a good night, everybody.
So I'm assuming you have the physical copy of this book.
Yes, I most certainly. This is actually the very first Elseworld that I ever purchased.
So it looks like the cover has like a rippled leather feel.
Yes,
Is
it
that
does.
just?
Yeah, that's just an illusion.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's there to trick our tiny
Like
minds.
an old tome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it does have that old leather-bound look to it. However, it was just a prestige format, like $5, like either $5 or $4 Elseworld. Just very thin and semi-hard front and back, and it's probably 50 pages long, if that.
Is it large size, like art in print? Is it regular comic book size?
It's a regular comic size prestige format.
Hmm.
Yeah, which worked out well for me because it fit in my long box without any issue. But I most certainly read this from cover to cover many times. It made me even more obsessed with the idea of alternate realities for well-known characters. And so, yeah, I guess we open the not quite leather-bound tome, not quite leather-bound, not quite tome, and we see that the trend for that design does continue on the inside for the very first page. It does look like it's a very old piece of parchment that is probably in a hand-bound book, letting us know that we are indeed about to read Superman Kal, written by Dave Gibbons with art by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
For some reason, and this is just me and my brain being mush, but I get a very Defenders of the Crown feel. I don't know if anybody played that game.
Defenders of the Crown. Holy crap.
Yeah,
No.
it was like I played it on Commodore 64 in the 80s.
Okay, Grandpa. See, well, I thought it was on the NES.
There was an NES version as well. It
Okay.
was a popular game during the 80s. It was on like Amiga, Commodore 64, NES.
It
Was
was
that in the movie
everywhere where
Big?
video games wanted to. Yeah, right.
No, it was not the movie Big.
Freeze the wizard. Use ice wand. Whatever it is. But I mean, I guess that makes sense because Defenders of the Crown is like a medieval based game, and this certainly takes place in medieval times. And we start up on this bad Larry here, and what we're getting in our opening dialogue boxes here, it's very much clearly a narrative. It's almost as if someone's speaking to you, telling you the tale. You're not quite reading it, and it starts off showing the wanton destruction of the planet Krypton as it's being torn apart by the forces within it. And we see a very much more ornate looking Jor-El and Lara, like a fur-lined cloak on Jor-El and a nice House of El seemingly metal necklace on Lara hanging from her neck, as they are putting their young baby into a rocket ship that is very much the same rocket ship that was designed in the 30s and 40s. Very metal and has the wings on it on the bottom around the booster and everything, and a pin tip, and that needle just sticking out like 8 friggin' feet from the nose of the rocket ship. And we are just given these visuals quickly to establish, like, okay, look, that's Krypton being destroyed. We see the rocket ship blasting off from the explosion just after we see the baby put inside of it. The baby is clearly the sole survivor of this doomed planet. And our narration over this, it's not really in time with what we know of the character, the sci-fi origins of Superman, Kal-El from Krypton, where this person is saying magic. You wish to learn of magic, eh, lad? Well, in truth, I suppose 'tis time we began your education. Draw close. The first lesson is this: all things are born of fire. And, it just obviously that's why we have this fiery, destructive scene in front of us. All things are born from it. And this is clearly the very beginning of our story, as far as we, the audience, are concerned. And the narrator is letting their listener know that they are about to hear what is likely going to be a magical yet probably tragic tale about somebody named Kal. And we move on to see that same rocket making its way. And the narrator saying, "Have I not told you of Kal? No? Well, since you're finished with the day's labors and supper's not yet ready, rest easy, and while the fire does its work, I'll tell you Cal's story. That is, as much of it as much as I know of it. For the beginnings of his legend are lost in time's misty veils, but it seems he was found in a field." And it's important to note that this is giving us all it's the same imagery that we know. Like, it's just been ingrained in like pop culture consciousness. We know that rocket's going to land on Earth. Of course he was found in a field. Where else would that rocket land? Who's going to find him? A couple of farmers. Duh, right? That's how the story of Superman goes. And we also do get a glimpse as the ship is approaching Earth. Just outside of its atmosphere, it's not just the rocket that is about to descend, but also what seems to be a rather large shard of glowing green crystal right next to it.
I missed that.
Yep, it's on both panels right there in the middle. You can see it just to the left on the middle panel, and then right there up and to the left. But yeah, so we get all of the identifiable stuff. They have established very visually who it is that we're about to see a story for. And yeah, we see crows on a broken down old fence, and that's clearly land that's been tilled and maybe planted, and it looks like it's God's country out there. But one thing that you should be aware of right off the bat, I know it's something that I always caught, is that there's an awful lot of hills in that scene at the very bottom. And one thing about the Midwest, particularly in areas like Kansas, is there's no such fucking thing. Everything is flat land out there.
It's 100% accurate.
Yep.
Being out here, I could tell you that's one of the things that bugs the hell out of me.
Yeah, you can just see to the horizon forever and a day, and it's unnerving. It's unnerving for someone like me. I literally come from a city that's made out of hills, so like, thanks Boston. But yeah, it's something I always made note of. That's one of the things right away, outside of the shots of Krypton and a rocket ship, that should indicate that things are not quite what we're used to them being. He is clearly not landing in Smallville, Kansas. And that's when we go to the next page, and of course the rocket hits, and there's the usual skidding with the the cool sci-fi cooling down noise. And we see two people approaching, and they're speaking in what one can only assume as medieval Cockney accents, which I am not going to attempt speaking in. So if you were looking forward to that, gang, sorry, I'll get you something next Christmas.
Okay.
And these two, they approach, and they look like farming peasants from the medieval times. I mean, full on, no doubt about it. And they're trying to figure out what in blazes they just saw happen. And as Jonathan, I mean, they're still John and Martha. They're still their names, because those are very old timey names. They've definitely survived the eras. He's well worried about it being like the work of the devil. And the second she sees that baby, game over. Does not matter. She's like, it's a babe in a silver egg, you know, like they do.
It's a baby, is.
It's a baby, is. We're going to take care of him forever and ever. Gonna be the best St. Swithin's Day we've ever had in this farm.
Kippers again for breakfast.
Blimey. So yeah, and the it's the egg there, and she's like, oh, Johnny's lovely. And a babe, John, and he's all ours. And he's just like, yeah, I suppose he is, like, by rights. But I don't know. This still seems like witchcraft to me. All right, dude. I don't think you have a choice in the matter, right? It's nice to know that Martha was always just like, nah, this is my kid now. In like every reality. No, sorry, you can shut up. We're taking him home. And
I think he wanted a child too, and
he did, but he was still a superstitious man, and
definitely
in medieval times.
More than that, because that last sentence he says is pretty jarring.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's not just him that was superstitious; it was everybody else. So if they got wind of some giant silver egg dropping from the sky that had a baby in it, then yeah, they would likely kill him, his wife, and the baby. They would burn them all at the stake. But yeah, she's just like, I'll take him inside because it's nasty out here and he should be indoors. And John's just like, yeah, sure, I'm just one guy with a shovel. I guess I'll fucking take care of this thing.
Yeah.
And quote, buries the rocket ship. We'll see later on just how great a job he did. And then we get a little bit of a montage as they do in some of these things, and they're looking after the baby, and they just kind of told people that it was Martha's dead sister's kid, and they were taking him in and raising him as their own. So he was still family, and nobody questioned it because people could barely fucking read, let alone send out inquiries about somebody's next of kin. And that's when they started to realize like he was much stronger than he should have been at his age, and he also could like do certain things, like he could see through things, and he didn't get sick or really hurt. His teeth stayed like perfectly healthy and white, and at a time where black tooth was a thing. Yeah, you have people dying, like getting scurvy on land, and this kid was healthy as a fiddle. Fit as a fiddle, healthy as a horse. Sorry, I confused my idioms. And they got to the point where Jonathan, much like in the reality we know, he starts telling the kid like, listen, you gotta kind of like play it down there, kid. Just kind of walk around and stoop your shoulders and don't talk to anybody, don't bring any attention to yourself, and you'll be fine. And so once again, nice to see that John still like got his head about him to realize like other people out there are very stupid, so you need to be much smarter than them. And time goes by, and now it gets to the point where we find out that by the time Cal's 12 years old, he's able to do as much work on the farm in one day that it would take Jonathan to do in a week and a half. So we flash forward and we see that Kal is likely about 17 or 18, and he's just cutting through logs at super speed to pile up for kindling and what have you. And that's when they get visited by the blacksmith from in town, Oll, and his son Jamie. And it's worth noting that All and his son Jamie are both redheaded. All is this big, burly, bearded, redheaded blacksmith, and Jamie's a bit more of a dinky teenage kid. All's complaining about to Martha and Jonathan, saying like, I try to teach him how to do blacksmith stuff, but he just wants to read and learn science like his mother. Ugh, gross.
Did you get the play on his name?
And I was just going to say,
okay.
And it's important. It's important when we're looking at those things to see that it's All and his son Jamie. So Jamie is All's son. This is Jamie Olsen in Cal's medieval reality here. And they meet, and Jamie and Kal become instant pals. They're just buddies right from the word go. And the reason all is there is to reshoe their horses. And as he's making conversation and doing the work, he makes note to to Martha. And Johnny's just like, what the hell is this? Did I even need to come out here? Like, have you even been using your horses, man? There's barely any wear on these things. Of course, he's still changing them for him, which I love.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, there's like no wear on these. That'll be $50, and he's just like saying all that stuff. We move on to the next page, and we see that meanwhile, Jamie and Kal are just playing a game of Conkers that Jamie was trying to explain to him. And as they're doing it, a bull busts loose from the yard, the barn, and it comes right at them. And just as Jamie basically finished putting his head between his legs so he could kiss his ass goodbye, he looks up, and his father and Jonathan are there. And Kal's just kind of standing there, and John's admonishing Kal, like, come on, man, what the fuck are you doing?
You had one job.
That's when you see the upward view above Kal's head. He just took the bull and threw it, and it landed in the tree above them, and all saw the entire thing. And so as they're walking away, all says to John, he's like, oh, man, looks like he's even stronger than I thought. Looks like blacksmithing is definitely the trade for him. And John's like, no, we need him here as a farmer. Where all pretty much explains to him, like, no, I think you could afford a couple of guys to work here, take his place. I mean, you've been doing pretty well for yourself for a few years here. And you wouldn't want folk getting the notion that his strength was, well, unnatural, would you? And of course, Jonathan's hands are tied. Like, okay, fine, take him. Rather he and both of us be safe, and you can teach him a trade than keep him here and risk certain death. And he tells him, like, oh, I'm fair, man. You can hold on to him until winter comes around, that we can get everything ready for you, and I'll just come grab him at Yuletide. No big deal. Just rip your kid from your arms at Christmas.
So just one more season.
Yep, just one more season, and too bad, buddy. You got to go learn how to bend metal. I'm sure that'll be really difficult for Kal. Everybody, the guy from Krypton.
That meant to be a Star Wars joke, but
I was just thinking.
I missed
it.
Yeah,
I was thinking that's what you were talking about, because I was like, this reminds me of Luke on that damn moisture farm.
Oh my god! But I was gonna go to Toshi Station, get some power converters. At least I never thought that Kal was even remotely close to being that whiny in this, thankfully. Not that I don't love
any
Luke
womp rats.
Oh man, Luke, what a boring existence that kid lived. But anyway,
he got better.
He got better. So yeah, we see the next shot. It's a splash page of Lexford. That's the town, the village that the farm is just outside of. And all as it's stating in the narrative, he actually didn't care about natural, unnatural witchcraft, the devil, God. He only cared about money. He was a merchant. He cared about mercantilism. And when he saw Kal and how strong he was, he just got dollar signs in his eyes, or I guess pence signs in his eyes. I don't know what they used for pounds. I don't know. Fucking gold doubloons in his eyes. And yeah, but he knew
they use itchy and scratchy bucks.
So yeah, he's just super pumped to have Kal there, because now he's actually going to have an apprentice that will likely be more amenable to learn what he has to teach, and likely up to the physical task of it, unlike his son Jamie. And he gets there, and Kal is just, he's struck with awe at how many people there are, and all the bustling about. And he's just like, I've never seen anything like this, and so many folks. And Jamie tells him, like, oh, just wait till the fair gets here. He's like, there's even more people, and he just asks Jamie, like, do you live in the big castle over there? Jamie, in the nicest way, is like, No, stupid. Like, I'm a blacksmith's son. That's where Baron Luther lives.
He's like, I sleep in a drawer.
Baron Luther of Lexford lives in that castle. And
just real quick, in the 13th century, the principal currency of exchange was the silver penny or sterling. The silver groat was produced as an isolated issue in 1279, but did not come into general circulation until the following century.
he had silver pennies in his eyes. See,
So see that, Leo. It's going to take you at least 100 years to get your Dogecoin in your Shiba before it'll be acceptable.
Jeez.
Don't say that because I have some too. I don't want to hear that. None of that business. So yeah, we just come up to the scene where they arrive at All and Sons blacksmith, and they start unloading a bunch of wood from the back of the carriage that was bringing them in. And as they're doing it, there's a couple of Luther's guards that they call the bully boys that purposefully bump into Kal as he's carrying an armload of timber, whilst holding a I don't know a stein or whatever you want to call it of a dram of mead, and just tells him basically like, "Oh, you should stay out of my way," normal bully, big guy, tough guy bullshit, and all just immediately starts apologizing. Oh, sorry, gentlemen. He's new in town. He doesn't understand to not be in your way. We'll take care of that. Sorry.
He's not
And
used to the big city.
I'm not used to peoples. And that's his big welcome to Lexford is that right there. And moving from there, we see that Kal starts to learn the trade. He goes to the smithy forge and just bangs out work like nobody's business. And he learned quickly. He did more work than all ever expected him to be able to do. And because Kal is just a nice kid, everybody like in the family absolutely loved him. He became like another brother to Jamie and his sister, and another kid to All and his wife. And then they kind of say that the girls in the village by springtime started noticing Kal a little bit more, and he started noticing them, noticing him, noticing them. Fun puppy love kind of crap. And he's just kind of doesn't know what to do with himself other than be at the smithy. And Jamie starts. He's not a stupid kid, but he starts asking certain questions. He's just like, "Hey, how come your skin never blisters when you spend all that time in there?" Said the fair red-headed kid.
Yeah, this translucent skin.
Right. I can actually see your central nervous system. And he's just like, I don't know, but don't tell anybody about it because it sounds like the kind of thing that would get us in a lot of trouble. Please. And right at that moment, there's a declaration, a decree made on behalf of Baron Luther. They're going to have a tournament and joust in celebration of the Lady Louise's 16th birthday. So there's a maiden Louise, clearly Lois Lane, in this. And she is the daughter of their murdered protector, Lord Lane. And Luther has been holding her captive. And the events seem to be containing single combat, archery, strength, and wrestling. And everyone, men of course, are welcome to present themselves and give it a shot on that day. And immediately, all the young girls that are enamored of Kal in town just, you should go, Kal. You're so big and strong. And Jamie's just standing by alone. Lexford needs a hero, man. Like, I don't know why they think it's him, but they're sure the fucking key members of his fan club. That's for damn sure. And we get there the next day. It looks very much like the scene for getting a kiss from Maid Marian in Disney's Robin Hood. Just
I love the design for Luthor here, and just like this picture of him on the bottom where he's just like got his hands on Lois's face.
oh,
Just it's so cool.
He looks like a muscular Telly Savalas.
Exactly. He looks like
Yeah.
Telly Savalas.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
he's a player.
And the way they drew Luis there, or Lois, however we pronounce it.
Lois.
Yeah, Lois. It looks like they drew her like, like a 50s actress.
I thought she looked like
Olivia
Betty
de
Davis.
Havilland,
I
maybe.
I thought Betty Davis.
Yes.
I was thinking Olivia de Havilland from Adventures of Robin Hood.
That's fair. That's fair. I only
would it be a fair maiden?
because that's what she is. I get it.
Slow
And-
clap.
Yeah, and
That was well placed.
we see everything going down here, and they're just like, let's hear 3 cheers for Baron Luther. Hip hip. I said 3, and then Luther's just like, yeah, you can shut up. I don't care if they like me. They just have to be afraid of me. Like, that's a solid leader right there, gang. That's the kind of person you want running your shit. Eek. This is the guy that makes sure that everyone's fed. All right, cool. Never mind. No, I'm fine with
Yeah,
it.
but to what?
yeah, to what? And he goes immediately into harassing and assaulting Lois. I mean, touching her when she doesn't want to be touched. That's assault, brother. And
It's so weird and creepy.
Yeah, and he's like, oh well, you're old enough to get married now, 16-year-old Lois. You should be speaking of loving me. And she's like, love you? I would die first. And then he's like, oh well, enough of that palaver. Let the tournament begin. And that's when we just see that there's all kinds of people attempting, but we find out that the Baron's black shirts, as his guards, they're the ones fighting in each portion of the tournament. And as it is, the Shire's knights had been murdered in their beds at the start of Luther's reign of terror, and it left only the inexperienced squires to do battle. That's why everyone's getting mollywopped and having their asses handed to them. And after sitting around and what have you, they they what is it? What is it? Yeah. Oh yeah. There's another announcement I made. Those wishing to contest their strength step forward now, and this is for the strength contest. And finally, after being egged on by so many people, one girl says to Kal, like she's kind of giggling to herself, and she says, "You might want a kiss from Lady Louise, Kal." And that fucking goosed him, and he was like, "What? I could get a kiss from that pretty girl? Okay." And so he jumps out of the crowd over the fence and runs right over and starts participating in the it's like Festivus, the feats of strength. And he just lifts a boulder right over his head, and he wins a one man on man tug of war, I guess. It's the only thing I could think of there.
Yeah, I think that's shorthand for strength.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh, pulling on a rope. Absolutely. That takes strength. I got it. Nailed it.
I love that his dad showed up.
Oh, all? Yeah.
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 No, not all.
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Wait, where? Oh, yep. Okay. Yeah. Well, it makes sense. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And he'll be on some of the subsequent pages too.
Yeah. And then as we get past that, Luther turns to some muscle-bound idiot that looks like a circus strongman from the 20s that he wants Kal stopped. And so he goes out there, and it's for the wrestling portion of the tournament. And the guy he comes right out and grabs Kal right around his torso, knocks him off balance, gets him on the ground. And it turns out he has a spike on one of his wrist cuffs that's filled with snake venom, and he goes to penetrate Kal's chest with the spike to kill him. And of course, the spike just completely bends against the Kal's skin because he's fucking Superman. Obviously not going to do it to him. It takes the guy completely by surprise, and Kal just seemingly kicks him right in the fucking balls and sends him flying. And the winner is, of course, Kal. And Luther's pissed. He's got his fun little green emerald glowing around in a necklace on his neck, which so fun and fancy. Wherever did he get such a thing? He's very pissed that this guy won, and Lois says, "No, I'll present this prize for you." And she walks over and just introduces herself essentially, and he's just like, "Duh, hi, pretty
Yeah.
lady. I like your pointy hat." And we see in the next page that they're both just like staring into each other's eyes, and there's probably a very awkward silence as this occurs for everybody else, because clearly for them the world has stopped. And then Luther just gets impatient. He's like, "What are you waiting for, peasant? You've had your moment of glory," and approaches Kal whilst wearing that glowing green jewel around his neck. And as soon as he approaches him, Kal starts to like get woozy and feel faint, and Luther begins to mock him like, "Oh, no strength left? Well, let me help you back down." Kicks him off the stage where the presentation is taking place, and he managed to get Luis's scarf that she had handed to him, and all carries him back to the smithy. And the next scene we see is the big splash of Kal beaming ear to ear as he's banging out something in the shape of an L, it looks like. And he's clearly very, very happy with the encounter he had with Lois. He does not care about anything that happened with Luther. And he's probably, walking on sunshine. And
Whoa.
yeah, whoa. And
where does Michael J. Fox come into this?
My God, I didn't see a Teen Wolf anywhere in this thing.
See, here she looks a little bit more like Judy Garland.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Like especially that lower left panel there.
But she's definitely got the blue Betty Davis eyes. Like,
yes, yeah, I'll give you the Betty Davis eyes in this one and the other page, but her face does kind of look different in spots where it's like it's kind of resembling someone else. So
fair enough. Yeah,
the art's great though. I mean, it's super expressive, and it's like the style is simplistic enough, and it's detailed, and the coloring is a real star of this book too. Because like just looking at it, it's everything's changed. Like there's limited amount of purples and like fantastic colors on this page. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's all very beautifully constructed, like from stem to stern. And what we come up onto here is it's clearly like autumn. We can see that the leaves are yellowing, turning orange on the branches, and we see that Kal and Lady Louise are having a little bit of a clandestine meeting. She snuck out of the castle dressed as a kitchen maid because Luther went off on a boar hunt, the first of the season, and he was going to be away for some time, so he wouldn't be around to see this happen. And as they're standing there, Kal just quickly whips his head, and he's just like, "He's coming now." And Lois is like incredulous, and she's like, "Luther." He's like, "Yes, quickly, we have to hide." And all of a sudden, you see him and his men on their horses with their hound dogs going by at breakneck speed. And then the next two panels down, we see that Luis and Kal are actually standing about 25-30 feet up in a tree, and she says to him, "You climb so fast, we seem to fly." And he's like, "Surely not. Lois, no, definitely not flying. Who could do such a thing?" And but then he says, "But we can go down more slowly if you wish. Hold tight now." "I would hold tight forever, Kal." And then they have their first kiss.
Aww.
And then going past that, we come across Luther and his gang of unruly dickheads, and it turns out they are on the farm that belongs to Jonathan and Martha. And while there, the dogs start to unearth the rocket ship that Jonathan had, quote, buried 18 years previous. And, like I said, bang up job, because it took them literally like a minute and a half of uncovering with dirt to see what it was.
Yeah, he could have kicked it with his shoe. Yeah.
Like, for real. And Luther sees it, and I mean, obviously, it's a big shiny thing. So he's like, "Is this yours?" And the farmer's like, "No, it's not mine." And Luther's like, "Oh, so if it's not yours, then it must be mine. Then thank you for keeping this here on your farm. I'll be taking it." Doop 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 doop. And I mean,
Classic.
that's totally classic Baron Luther. That guy, I tell you, if I had a silver penny for every bit of farmer's property he took,
He'd take that too.
he would take that too, because I would likely be working on a farm. But yeah, he tries to get an explanation. John just like, it fell from the sky. That's it. You can take it. It's not a big deal. And one of the guards says like, oh, maybe it's like your gemstone. Didn't that come from the heavens like a comet too? And he's like, this metal, it has no, it's of unearthly quality. It's not rusted. It shows no taint. And it's harder than any armor I've ever seen. And that's when Martha chimes in, and she's like, "Oh, armor! Our son is apprenticed to Alda Smith. Maybe he could make a fine suit of armor from that very metal." And so Luther's convinced, because it took an awful lot to convince him to take it, I'm sure, to bring it directly to the blacksmith and have them fashion some armor out of it. And leaves well, I mean, for lack of a better term, Kent's, thanking their lucky stars for the fate that was handed out to them just then, and that is to say, surviving. They did not get killed. So we come to All's smithy, and there's the rocket. They're unloading it off a carriage, and Luther, of course, is in tow, and Kal is part of working on this metal. But as Luther gets near him again, he's starting to feel pretty weak and frail again. And All is inspecting the metal, and he's just like, I don't know, this is a pretty hard metal. I might not be able to build a fire hot enough to work it. Where Luther informs him, oh, you better, or I'll build a fire for those who study spells, and those with unholy strength, and those who harbor them. You get it? And All, being a smart man, very shrewd, says, absolutely. You want to make sure I get this done. So what kind of design do you want on the breastplate? And that was the right move, I think, because the alternative was, death. Seems like that's always like the second choice with Luther. It's like armor or death, tournament or death. So
seems reasonable.
Yeah, we absolutely, Baron Luther is likely nothing if not reasonable. And we see All going at it with the heat and the hammer, and nothing is marring this metal. And Kal, now feeling much better from that strange fainting spell he had earlier, walks in, and he says, why don't you let me take a crack at it? And we are being told through our narrator that soon the forge roared with a hellish fury that none but Kal could have withstood. And though all thought it but a trick of the flames, Kal's eyes appeared to glow with inner power, and his mighty breath seemed to fan the fire as miraculously the metal began to yield. So Kal is clearly using his heat vision and super breath to make it this so that this metal is malleable enough to actually mold. And using his super strength in tow, he goes to town. And finally, after all that work, they load it up and they bring it to Castle Luther. And they present it to Baron Luther in the Great Hall. And he puts it on right away, and then commands one of his guardsmen to attack him. And he says, smite me. And the guy swings full strength his sword directly at the middle of the armor that Luther is wearing. and the sword completely shatters. And that's when you get a glimpse of that armor that was designed by Kal. And you see the breastplate design in the middle of it is the S insignia that we have come to associate completely with Superman.
How about those shit kickers that he has on, huh?
Yeah, those fucking spikes on those bad boys. Woo! Like, that's for climbing walls or something. I don't. Jesus Christ! Why would you? Why would you wear shoes that pointy, guys? At any given point, I don't understand.
Horse riding. You want to really make sure the horse feels it.
You fucking kill the horse? It's horse riding, not horse
The-
murdering.
All I can think of is it to me represented something that's cruel. Like he put it there for nefarious reasons. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's vague. It's vaguely reminiscent of the Wicked Witch of the West's feet curling up underneath the
yeah,
house.
yeah, I'll give you that, sure.
But yes, they go through all that presentation there, and Lex feeling like he's the big badass because of this impenetrable suit of armor, he turns to the only person he feels is a real threat, Kal, and says, "You, Smith boy, are you afraid of me?" And Kal, as Lex Luthor gets close, as Baron Luthor gets closer, starts to feel weaker because of the green gemstone that Luthor is still wearing over the armor around his neck. And they're just like, "Oh, leave Kal alone. He's so tired after his long labors. He did all this, blah 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 blah." And Luthor's like, "Oh, well, you're the one that did it. Well, you worked so hard. I'll prove just how generous I can be. Name your price, Smith." And all is just like, "Well, no, it's not me. It's the kid. It was Kal. So you should reward him." And Luthor says, "Fine. I don't care who actually did it. Speak up if you've got the strength. What do you want?" And Kal looks right at him and says, "I only want one thing: the hand of the fair lady Lois in marriage." And Luthor immediately lifts up the hand to fucking backhand him across the alley. And immediately Lois goes, "I accept. I accept with all my heart, dear Kal." And Luthor realized he was in between a rock and a hard place because he publicly offered it, and it was publicly accepted by Lois. So he's in a pickle. He has to let it happen. And we move forward, and within the month, they are married. They're having a big old party just outside of the church, and the streets of Lexford are just a big old party, and everyone's happy for the new, lovely couple. And it even shows Martha and Jonathan sitting there, and she's shit faced and saying, "Oh, you look pretty good when you're clean." And he's like, "Oh, great, we're married to nobility. I guess I'll have to take a bath every month now." Gross. Oh man. And we move on. Everyone's having fun with the revelry, and Louis and Clark, and Kal are just dancing slowly, kind of staring into each other's eyes. And then the midnight bell strikes, and as we move past the party, we see Terror is also striking alongside the bell, and that is because Luthor has sent his black shirts in to retrieve Lady Louise, because as Jamie puts it in this, surely even Luthor wouldn't invoke the droit du seigneur. I don't know why they went with that. I didn't look it up. It certainly sounds French, but for anybody that's ever watched certain other things like Braveheart and what have you, it's prima nocta. He's invoking prima nocta, that the first night of a marriage, the lord, the nobility of an area, they reserve the right to take the virginity of the bride.
So I just looked it up, and so of medieval feudal lord, it's Lord's Night, also known as Jus Primus Nocte.
Prima nocta, yep.
Yep.
That was the joke in Avengers where Tony Stark said the first thing he was going to do if he was in charge was bring back Prima Nocta.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, so was supposed to be a legal right in medieval Europe, allowing feudal lords to have sexual relations with subordinate women, in particular on the wedding nights of the women.
Yeah, just to prove they were bastard coated bastards with bastard filling.
Yep.
And so yeah, he rolls in, and Luther is straight up right there. He is right there to say to Kal, like, "Oh yeah, I'm fucking doing this." And of course, he's wearing the armor and the green gemstone around it. So when Kal tries to fight back and say like no, as soon as Luther gets near him, he goes weak because it's kryptonite and it's slowly poisoning him. Because he goes down like a sack of potatoes, Luther is able to take Luis along with his goon squad, and they put an egg in their shoe and beat it. And well, let me get. And that's when we find Luther in his chambers with Lady Luis, and he is disrobed to a degree. He is taking his belt off in front of her as well, and he starts saying like, we need to remove your gown, and she fights back. He's like, I like a wench with spirit, and he goes to kiss her, and she bites his lip to the point where he starts like bleeding profusely from his mouth. And so he backhands her pretty roughly, and calls her a bitch, and rips her gown, and then just starts saying how she's making him very angry, lifts up his fist, and then we just see two of his guardsmen standing outside of the chamber door, where he keeps saying bitch, and she says no, and then he says bitch again, and then the door opens and you can see her body bloodied and broken on the floor, and he tells them to clean up this mess and throw the body in the moat. And yeah, it's fucking horrid in any era. And that brings us to Kal, who has been down for the count since he was exposed to the kryptonite, and he finally wakes up, and he's freaking out. He's like, "Where's Lois? Where's Luis? Luther took her. Where is she?" And they start saying like, relax, relax, and the guards come for him, and they say like they have a warrant for the boy Kal's arrest, and Kal, he gets up and crashes through the door past them and looks at everyone standing outside and just starts saying, "Where is she?" over and over again, until finally one of Lady Luis's maidens in waiting comes to him and says that she has the most terrible news. And that's when the narrator tells us that Kal listened numbly, like a great still statue. For a frozen moment, an awful silence hung over the smithy, and a single tear rolled down Kal's face. Luis. That's all he said. And then he had a grim determination that stirred his powerful frame, and he walked back into the smithy, came right back out with something wrapped in cloth that looks very much like it's in the shape of a sword, and he straps it to his back. And he is just ready to take the fight directly to Luther. He straight up tells his guards, I'm not going to do anything to you guys. I know the guy I got to go after. And he starts making his way, and we get this cool splash image of Kal walking down the streets of Lexford, making
He's
his way.
pissed.
Oh, he is definitely not a happy dude. And he's walking towards Castle Luther to make Luther pay for what he had done. And they approach. He's got the townspeople at his back, supporting him and waiting to help him in the fight. And they get there, and the guards at the turrets and everything, they're just like, "Oh, this is a revolt! Quick, raise the drawbridge! We don't want the townspeople to hurt us, like we've hurt them for countless years now." And everybody gets to their posts, and they pull out the crossbows and they start raining down arrows. And of course, several people get hit, including Jamie. He catches one to the left shoulder, nothing lethal, thankfully. And Kal is getting hit with stuff, but of course, it's just breaking and bouncing right off his skin. And he finally just, once he sees that Jamie got hit, he spins around and uses his heat ray vision to break the chains of the drawbridge to let it down. That way they can actually get into the castle. And as soon as they do, they let loose another flurry of arrows at him, doing precisely nothing other than wasting arrows. And he gets to the gate. And as soon as he's standing there at the gate, they say, "What a great phrase! Ready the molten lead." And that's when Kal goes to lift up the gate, and we see just as he starts, he easily rips it out of the wall and throws to the side, as Jamie says, as if it were the merest spider's webbing. And that was the castle's last barrier. He starts to make his way through it with the townspeople still at his back, and as he goes through, they dump an entire cauldron of molten lead over Kal, and everyone's freaking out because they're just, oh, Cal's done, he's dead, done for. And then as all the steam and smoke disappears and dissipates, they see, oh no, that was just his clothes burning away, and he is now covered in this lead that is slowly cooling around his body, none the worse for wear. And we see from the cloth that had burned away what the shape was that he brought with him. It is in fact a sword, and it is made from the same metal that the armor was. He even put the same S shield right above the hilt. And he's just walking naked, except for, of course, his new lead suit, I guess. And they're all just kind of staring at him, and we get to see what's happening up in the top of the tower where Luther is. And they're all gearing up for Kal to come through the door, coming through like the main atriums and up the steps. And instead, they turn around, and then we get a splash of Kal flying through the open window in the archway, brandishing the sword directly at Luther. And they are now convinced that they are fighting a demon. And we move a little ahead here and see that they are going to basically have single combat to the death. Kal with his powers and sword and his lead birthday suit, and Lex with his Kryptonian formed armor and a piece of kryptonite around his neck. Sounds like two things that these guys should definitely each have.
Yeah.
And the lead is likely protecting Kal a little bit from the kryptonite's effects, because lead is known to block kryptonite radiation. And so when Luther hits him in the neck with an axe, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't cut his skin, but it does seem to like knock him off kilter. And then Luther and he are, he's kind of chasing after Luther, and Luther's trying to take him out with maces and what have you, but everything just keeps bending and breaking. And as he's getting closer and closer, he's starting to notice that Kal is getting weaker and weaker. And when he's lying unconscious down on the ground from where he is on the top steps in the chamber, he realizes that it's the gemstone that makes Kal weak, that the Starborn Jewel is the only thing that can harm him. So it's with that he'll kill him. And so he jumps from the top of those steps, brandishing the point of the gemstone downward in a stabbing motion with his hands above his head. And he brings the full force of him falling down with the point directly into Kal's chest, looking to pierce his heart. And that's when we see at the last second that Luther only just realized what he did. And that's because Kal, right before Luther landed on him, grabbed the sword and pointed it upwards, piercing the previously thought to be impenetrable armor and stabbing Luther directly through the heart and chest. And that's how Jamie found them. And we now learn from the narrator that he is in fact Jamie, that was how he came upon them, locked like that together in death. And his men afterwards fled from the castle, and they took the armor from Luther's body and then fed him to the hounds. Kal lived. He was still alive, but he was very weak even after the gemstone had been taken away. And they brought him home to the smithy, and they tried to just ease his pain as he was clearly dying. In the meantime, Lady Louisa's servants, they actually recovered her body from the moat where it was laid, where it was thrown by Luther's men, and they laid it to rest with dignity in Lake Lexford's placid depths. And then that afternoon, Kal died. With his final breath, he asked that they bring his body to the tranquility of the lake as well. And they did, clad in the armor, and they did so that he might be able to sleep beside his love forever. Where we find now at the end of the tale, Kal is starting to be a little maudlin about it, and he just says, "Ah, Kal, where you came from, I can never know. What you might have become in another place and time, I can only wonder. But of one thing I can be sure: I was proud to be your friend." And that's when a little voice kind of stutters, "Master Olson?" And he's checking. He shows Jamie an old man, and he's just like, soup's almost done. Just needs something. Anyway, what's up, kid? Speak up." And the kid says, "Well, Master Olson, how could Kal's sword go through the magic armor?" And did one question at a time. One question at a time. You see, when Kal made the wonderful suit, he secretly forged the sword for himself from the self-same metal. Metal which was surely by right, part of a mysterious heritage beyond this world's dreams. And once it was edged and tempered, why, even its brother armor couldn't withstand Kal's blade. And he tastes the soup. Perfect. And then, he says, now there was another question. And the kid says, "Yes, did you throw the sword in the lake too?" And that's when Jamie tells him, "The sword? Oh, no. Kal used the last of his mighty strength to put that somewhere safe. With Louise beyond need of protection, he hoped that one day another might make good use of it. But that's enough of stories for one night, lad. Eat your soup now, then get some rest. There will be lessons anew on the morrow. And if you work hard and study long, then one day, like noble Kal, your name too might pass into legend, young Merlin." And then we get the shot of where the sword is, in an anvil like the kind you'd find at a smithy, showing us that this sword that Kal created from his rocket that he was brought to Earth in is in fact Excalibur from Arthurian legend.
Nice.
And more to the point, that also shows that Lady Louise is the Lady of the Lake who provides the sword.
Oh, geez, I didn't think of that part, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get that in the first read either.
Yeah, she was well. I grew up with like Bullfinch's mythology and Edith Hamilton's mythology in my house. So like, by the time I read this, the second I got to the end and saw young Merlin, I was like, "Oh, so much lines up now." But yeah, like this blew my friggin' mind when I was a
Yeah.
kid.
It's crazy. I mean, it's got that element of tragedy to it. So it's not like a safe choice. So it's something where it's like this stuff happens and you have to deal with it at the end. You know, like you, the
Yeah.
reader, you have to cope with what just happened.
Well, the thing is too, like not every Elseworld and What If is constructed in such a way where it ties into like something you would think of as mythology. This is sort of an outlier in a lot of those types of stories. It's always very self-contained, self-referential. Whereas this, it's taking it's basically saying like, "Oh, this is actually like the prologue to the story that you all already know."
Yeah, that's the
And
fun part.
Yeah, and that there was just something about it that appealed to me then, and still appeals to me now. I mean, I absolutely love this story, and I had mentioned to you guys, before the show is like it makes me like want more stories like this one for like the rest of the members of the Justice League. And I don't mean as a team, but I'd love to see like individually and not even like tied into Arthurian legend. I would just love to see like their stories twisted into a point where it like locks in, it fits neatly into like what we know of an actual like myth. Like that would be cool. I would love to see something along those lines done. But I've been quite fine with Kal as like the standalone in that regard as well.
So if it was to do to Justice League, any myths come to mind or points in history?
Myths or points in history.
The
That's
round
tough.
table could be, Robin
Yeah,
Hood.
yeah. I mean, you could definitely do like you could do a Green Arrow as Robin Hood thing, or you could do a Bruce Wayne as Robin Hood thing, and
Yeah.
really spin that one turn on its ear. Because like the the easy one to assign to that would be Green Arrow. Um, but like I mean, you could still tie it into Arthurian legend, I suppose, and have Green Lantern be like the Green Knight. Um, I mean, you could still even try to play up and have Batman be kind of the bad guy and have him be Mordred in Arthurian legend.
They
But
definitely have touched on this before, and it's funny because I know specifically like Excalibur has touched on these, like for X-Men. Like we were
yeah,
talking about Nightcrawler earlier and all that, but like in the cross time caper, which was neither cross time nor a caper, they definitely touched on this with young Arthur and all that, and Kitty Pryde was in it, so you
yeah,
know. But
yeah, well, yeah.
they
It's
have done Legends of the Dark Knight where they had like the version, like medieval version of Batman.
There's one going on right now.
Yeah, it's Steel. Yep.
Yeah.
yep. And the thing is, like, there are other Elseworlds that deal with like historical takes on characters. There's one that it's Superman again. We'll likely cover at some point in the future. But it's Superman, but not Kal El. It's his grandfather, like Gar-El,
Oh.
and
Hmm.
he actually it's like a generation, two generations earlier or whatever. But he discovers that Krypton is going to explode. No one really cares, and he says, "Well, screw you guys. I'm going home." And he creates a ship to fit just himself, and he did his research and found Earth. This is based a little bit more upon like the John Byrne Superman, where Jor-El actually knew where he was sending Kal-El when he sent him out in a rocket ship and didn't just like hope for the best. Um, and because of that, he did his research, realized he'd have powers when he got there, but only if his cells absorbed enough yellow solar radiation. So he fitted the inside of the ship with yellow sun radiation emitters, so his cells could just soak it up in the entire trip before he even touched foot on Earth. And when he lands, it's right at the beginning of the American Revolution, and he lands and is found by the British, so he decides to team up with them. And that's all I'll say about that. It's actually a very interesting story. It was done as an Elseworlds annual. They did that for an entire year at DC, where all the annuals across the different titles were done as Elseworlds for the characters. Um, yeah,
That's a lot of annuals, like because mostly they're not canon.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the pluses about doing something like that with an annual is to just throw in an Elseworld tale, and they were Elseworlds were all the rage at that point in time, and they, like I said, they did it a couple times. They did one with Batman as a pirate.
Yep. Yep.
And they did
That's come out a couple times actually. That was
Yep,
also in the Hunt for Bruce Wayne.
I'm not surprised. They do one that actually deals with it's Steel, John Henry Irons, and I actually think that they like directly relate it to the American folk hero myth of John Henry. So there's a lot of interesting stuff where they do spins on histories and lore and what have you. But it's fun to see something that is done like this that could potentially be connected to a completely like previously unrelated tale altogether, and it doesn't really destroy the thing that they're saying it's connected to. If anything, it just strengthens the tale that they told.
Yeah.
And the fact that they hold on to that reveal until the very last page, that last splash that you see, it was done well. Because I mean, I remember reading it. I did not see it coming. I didn't. Even like when he pulled out a sword and and went at Luther with it. No, I didn't for a second think at all that that was going to end up being Excalibur.
Oh, they totally teased that part with the anvil too by covering it. You see that on like the second to last page where it's like you see the anvil, but you can't see anything above it. Then you go to that next splash page and it's like, oh, you've got the sword in that anvil.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, in honestly, like I love the design of both the armor and the sword in this. Like it almost makes me want like a replica of that sword in the stone.
Yeah,
You
yeah, that's
know?
pretty neat.
Yeah, and I remember when I read it and I like loved it so much. And I went to my local comic book store and there was a new manager who had taken over, a younger guy. He's probably about 10 years older than me. Um and I walked in, I was like, "Oh yeah, I just read Superman Cal." And he was like, "Oh yeah, that thing sucked." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah.
Won't be
It was
talking
the
to you.
worst. It was so bad. I'm done talking about it now because it's so bad. I certainly don't want to talk about it for sure."
And he's
No.
like, "Hey, you want to buy this Youngblood comic?" You're like, "I gotta go over here."
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he was kind of like, "Oh, but let me tell you about this X-Men comic." Like, no, like
Did you
hard
hear
pass.
there's 5 interlocking covers?
Yeah, that's exactly yeah. How do you feel about lenticular covers?
I mean, like, I feel pretty great.
How do you
What a
feel
die
about
cut cover.
How do you feel about yeah? How do you feel about buying 5 copies of the same issue? Uh, is there different stuff in each issue? No, just a different cover.
Oh,
I,
don't
f-
forget the 6th one that combined them all.
I feel attacked. You're talking about the E cover.
The E cover.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
E.
we talked about that last week. Honestly, how many copies do you guys have of that?
I have at least 3 copies, but one of them I totally took that poster off. So like I had that long vertical poster on the back side of the cover that was done by Jim Lee of all the villains. So
Jesus.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
I'll,
mean,
I'll I'll tell you how many I have in a second.
yeah,
Wow, you literally know how many copies you have of
Oh, we did an inventory recently with CLZ.
oh neat.
Yeah.
yeah. There's nothing more disheartening than being excited about a story and thinking you can go like talk about it with other
Uh,
people and like the safe place for it, and then immediately, like, I mean, for my own part, I'm glad that he said that before I said anything about how much I liked it.
maybe that
Uh,
would have changed his opinion.
Nah, no, it would not. It would not
I'm
have
just
changed his
kidding. It's a
opinion.
comic book store in the 90s.
Yeah,
What am
it
I
would
thinking?
not have changed his opinion. I don't go to the comic book store anymore because of this guy. It's not he's not like a bad person. I can't stress that enough, but like he's very conservative and
That's something that you run into
opinionated.
a lot, with this, like with these comic book stores where it's like you find the people that work there, they like lose all hope of like oh, I sell these funny books about like heroes and stuff like that. And I'm so, just despondent with life and it's like what broke you, man? Like you read about hope and all these characters and all that and you just miss all of those concepts all the time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's not even a problem with comic book store owners. Like it's like kind of across the board with
Yeah, I guess that's
like
true.
long time readers.
Misanthropic,
Yeah,
sort.
yeah. And a lot of it too, it just flies in the face of like the characters that they say that they adore. Like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. It's like, but you realize if the character that you were talking about right now were a real person, like
They would not
really
like you.
them, they would not agree with you at all, right?
Yep.
Like, do you really think Superman would think that? Honestly, I all right, cool. I mean, if you say so.
See, there's that
Superman never
snobbish
showed up
aspect
and was
too.
like, I'm here to protect everyone except those people. Okay. No, that's not how it works. In Champion of the Oppressed, 1938. There you go. It's you don't need more than that. Champion of the Oppressed. If you're not one of the oppressed, guess what? You're the other guys. It's that simple. I know life isn't quite that binary, but when you look at the bad guys and then look at the good guys and your points tend to line more with the bad guys, I got news for you. You're not one of the good guys.
Sometimes you have to point that out. Yeah.
44 copies, by the way.
Wow.
I admit I'm one of the reasons why the comic industry crashed.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
How many copies of Wolverine 50 do you have? That's the die cut cover.
That's the die cut cover.
Yeah.
So just real quick, there was 5 covers. I was mistaken, not 6.
Yeah, there's A, B, C, D, and E.
Yep. Yeah, I have 5 of A, 10 of B, 9 of C, then 10 of D and E.
You sunk my battleship.
What's the max price on something like that? $3?
It's probably like 50 cents.
Jesus.
Wolverine,
worth it.
Wolverine number 50.
Yeah.
I only have 2.
Only.
I'm impressed you had 2, to be honest. So.
Maybe that's why I didn't buy a lot of Marvel as a kid too. It was just all flashy covers. I didn't care.
Well, it depends. Like going back to what you were saying about like talking to people, and sometimes like there is that aspect of being like a little bit snobbish, and you know, it's like you ask someone, it's like, oh, you read comics? Cool. What do you like? Punisher. And I'm like,
No,
I'm like,
but I mean,
I don't think you get it.
do you like good comics or?
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, what Punisher comic? And your buddy Mark would definitely disagree with me at this point. He'll be like, I love every Punisher Max and all that. Okay, cool. You know, and the way he talks about it, it's awesome. I just remember in the 90s, you know, when someone said they were reading Punisher comics and all that, I'm like, do you even read comics, bro? You know,
ooh, that's a rough question.
Yeah, because I'm like, you haven't even gotten to the point where this character's good. Like, you're not even close. You know,
I read Punisher in the 90s.
Of course you did. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, it's fine. Like each to their own, but it's like this is not like Eisner Award winning materials. Like I remember reading Venom, Lethal Protector, and then after it was Funeral Pyre. Right. And it was like Venom and Punisher versus like a new guy who could like emit microwaves and stuff like that. And it's like,
so a guy that could just like prep your Hungry Man dinner. Good stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was interesting because every time Punisher would shoot at him, because that was his answer to shoot at the kid who was a teenager that went through an accident. Let's shoot him. Well, you can't shoot him because he melted the bullets. So Punisher had to figure out a different way to kill this kid. So
wait, hold on. He melted the bullets that had the gunpowder in them.
Right. No, that would be just slugs. Right, because the gunpowder would have like that would be in like just an actual like bullet cartridge.
But wouldn't the heat from the slug being melted cause at least some kind of combustion with the gunpowder?
I don't think it was making it to him because the heat was so intense around him. So they were saying that the bullets would melt prior to getting to him.
And I do see what Brandon's issue is there. He applied logic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was using my brain for a moment. Sorry, kids. I was trying not to do that again.
Well, it's lead poisoning. So all that molten lead again, like Clark, you know, he got systemic poisoning from lead and
fucking. He turned him into a pencil.
the hard way.
Fucking Christ. But yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that you guys enjoyed this tale. I hope everybody listening and watching, what have you, that you all enjoyed it. If you've read it previously, if not, I hope this was enough to whet your appetite to really like buckle down and pour through it. I mean, there's plenty of other stories that fall right in line with the Elseworlds line of tales. I honestly can't recommend these and what ifs enough. That's why we do the show.
Where does this rank in terms of like your Elseworlds? Because I know you said it was like your original go to, but like then now we've talked about Secret Identity, we've talked about Last Son of Krypton.
mhm,
I think those are the three Superman stories that we've done thus far.
mhm.
Where does this rank up there?
Ooh, man, this is probably, I mean, it's definitely top 10. Definitely top 10. I'd have to go through and double check an entire list. Um, I don't want to say top 5. Honestly, my number 1 is Superman Batman Generations. I'm not counting parts 2 and 3 in that. I'll just say Generations altogether. Because it started as a 4-part prestige format miniseries. Then they did Generations 2, which was another 4-part prestige miniseries. Then they did Generations 3, which was a 12-part maxi comic book series. Went over the course of an entire year, and John Byrne wrote and illustrated all 3 stories. One of the things I absolutely love about it, aside from the fact it is just about progression, the premise is Superman first shows up in 1938, Batman first shows up in 1939, and they continue to age naturally. Their cast of characters age naturally. They get married, have kids. Their kids take on legacies, and that's the thing. Legacy ends up becoming a big part of it, and you see how the rest of the DC universe, the world, develops around them as well. There is a Green Lantern at the time who's Alan Scott, and then later on, there's another Green Lantern who is Kyle Rayner, and Kyle Rayner is actually apparently like part of the whole like Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Universe thing with Oa, but Alan Scott's ring was still like the ring we know that was vulnerable to wood. So you don't get a lot of backstory on it, which always killed me because I would have loved to see like explorations of other characters in that universe. But it deals primarily with Superman and Batman, and I love the idea that it follows them through the decades and their kids and what happens to their families and their villains and all that. It's the way I wish comic books were across the board.
That was how
But
Claremont had envisioned the X-Men, where they would be generational and it would move on from X-Men to New Mutants, and then just kind of a new crop would come up and they'd
yeah,
pass the torch along.
yeah, and I think that's a very smart storytelling way to look at things. But I mean, there's other like absolutely phenomenal stories. I mean, Kingdom Come is definitely top 5. Um,
I think
the,
Leo and I can agree with that. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
totally.
I mean, and then there's other little things too here and there. I mean, there's like another story. It's a weird one, but I really like it. It's called Superman Distant Fires, and there's a nuclear holocaust that we don't see. We just see the aftermath of, and it caused a lot of damage. And we come across Superman starting off. It's Clark at the beginning of the story. He's the sole survivor in the wastes of Metropolis, and he survived, but he no longer has powers, and he has to make his way through this world. And there's all kinds of like crazy mutated vegetation and cannibals and stuff like that. And he
is
ends
it
up,
in the future?
well, I mean,
Because
not
I think they did a
really.
Justice League episode like that with Vandal Savage.
Maybe, but he does end up like finding a newly formed society that does have some of his old compatriots there.
No,
Yeah, like his old superhero friends, like Billy Batson and the Diana. One of the people who ends up becoming like chief engineer in this new society is the Joker. To everybody who had powers no longer has them, and everyone who had previously been like psychotic and crazy and just completely uncontrollable, they were all completely sane. Uh, and there's lots of other stuff that happens after that point. I don't want to say too much,
That's
but
pretty fun.
it is fun. And what's really cool is aside from it being a Superman Elseworld, it involves all these other characters, and Billy Batson slash Captain Marvel slash Shazam, however you want to call it. It's Captain Marvel in this story. Um, he plays a very, very big role in the entirety of the story. But yeah, that's a fun one, and I don't know that that would necessarily top a lot of people's lists, but I put that in top 10 for me. Um, but without a full blown list in front of me, I can't.
Yeah, I was just wondering about like the ones that we read and all that. But that's cool because you've talked about Generations like 2, 3 times. I'm looking forward to us getting to that one.
Oh, I absolutely I love it. I try to tell everyone about it. Like for the long they just released an omnibus like earlier this year that collects all three parts into one book. And I'm so glad they did because it takes the onus off of me in getting people to fucking read Generations because they stopped printing it. And I have every single one of the comic books. So it's very easy for me to be able to access it anytime I wanted. But because of how difficult it was to come across it, I'm loath to let people borrow it
Oh
because
yeah.
I've had a bad experience more times than once actually, where I've let people borrow excellent stories and then I don't get them back and I have to repurchase them.
I've
I've
bought Kingdom Come like 6 times.
I have bought Watchmen. I've bought Watchmen more
Watchmen
fucking
too.
times.
At least 3 times I've
Oh my
bought
fucking
Watchmen.
god, dude. Yeah.
So where would I'm going to give you two titles here. Superman Secret Origin and Superman American Alien show up.
Well, I mean those neither one of those are Elseworlds.
They're not.
No.
Really?
Secret Origin is written by Jeff Johns, and
Yeah.
American Alien is written by Max Landis. They are both just different tellings of Superman's origin story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Secret Identity is top 5 for me.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. So that's
I really like that one a lot.
yeah, that one, I mean, just the artwork, the storytelling, it's all beautiful. It's so subtle. It really does it lends realism to the entire tale without bringing it to that point where so many people get confuse realism with grittiness, and that is certainly not the case with Superman Secret Identity. I would say overall it is a very hopeful tale from beginning to end. But yeah, like there's just some great stuff. There's also some really fucking goofy stuff too, like Superboy's Legion. We'll get to that one. It's a two-parter. It's weird. It's not I don't mind the Legion of Superheroes stuff, but that like the conceit on that one is Kal-El is rocketed from Krypton, and this is based once again on the John Byrne stuff. So it's all like they're genetically engineered, and he stays in that weird black egg until somebody touches it and it's hatched. Otherwise, it keeps you in like suspended animation.
Mhm.
Well, Kal-El's rocket ship goes through a wormhole and gets like stuck or something like that for 1,000 years, and it finally is found and they open it up. It's a baby. It's Kal-El, and he is raised by R.J. Brand, the founder of the Legion of Superheroes. And so the whole thing ends up being Superboy wants to start up a group of other teenagers who are powerful like him, so he actually has like a peer group to hang out with, but also they want to do good things and help people. And that's how the Legion starts. And it's fine, but it's like fucking Diet Coke. Like it'll fill you up, but it's not gonna actually provide you with any nutrients. Um, but like I said, those really like kind of silly ones are few and far between. Another one that is really odd and just I never really cared for the Peter David run of Supergirl as it was. This like plays with that idea of Supergirl being like an earthbound angel.
Yeah, with the
And
telekinetic wings and
yeah, and
yeah.
the name of the Elseworld is Supergirl Wings, and it's just strange. That's really the best way to describe it. It's just odd. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of stuff that you would never necessarily expect. I look forward to when we get to like JLA Shogun of Steel. That'll be a fun one. It's feudal Japan, and that's where Kal-El landed. And one of the things that I always thought was really cool was that Kal-El landed in, I believe it was China, ancient China. Oh no, maybe it was Japan. I'm sorry, Japan. And he actually looks Asian.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Um, and I like to think that part of it might be because of adaptability to wherever he is. Like it's never anything that's ever actually spoken about, and the closest I've ever seen really to touching upon the idea of like that adaptability to the beings he's around or that he could be around is Icon from Milestone Comics. That's
Hmm.
exactly how the character's origin went. Like he was a shape-shifting alien that landed on Earth and was found by a black man and a black woman who were slaves. And so the infant instinctually made itself look like them, and that's why Icon was always a black man. I really I dig that idea. I dig it an awful lot. It makes sense. Like it's a defense mechanism. How else would this alien make sure that it's not killed on sight? And just the fact that I read this JLA Shogun of Steel book and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. Like the idea that Kal-El could land and no matter where it was, like if he had been found by an Inuit tribe in North America, he might have looked a lot more Inuit by the time he was an adult. But yeah, like we'll get to see a lot of variations on different things, and and that's just the DC side. I honestly, there's plenty of stuff for Marvel, not just the what ifs, but we can look at story arcs like Age of Apocalypse. We can look at Heroes Reborn, the original Heroes Reborn, not the new one they just did in like
You're talking about the 1996 with Jim Lee, Fantastic Four, and
yeah,
Rob
yeah,
Liefeld.
yeah, after
Yep,
Onslaught, yeah.
yep.
And even other series that Marvel did, they had Mutant X for a while.
Oh, I have like every episode, every issue of Mutant X.
Me too. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And in Exiles,
Oh yeah,
which when especially when Judd Winnick created it and was writing the bulk of it, it was absolutely
it was really
masterful.
good, man. That
Yeah,
like that was like everything I liked about X-Men in a book that didn't have the X-Men in it, and I'm
yeah.
like, oh, this is pretty fun.
And just the way it was designed to be able to insert a rotating cast of characters if need be. It was
It's kind of
brilliant.
like Sliders, actually. Like, if
It
you
was
remember
like
that old show,
Sliders and Quantum
yeah,
Leap.
yeah, it was pretty fun.
They have to put right the one thing that's going to go wrong in this reality, and when they do, they will leap, and hopefully that next leap will be the leap home. But it never was.
Nope.
But yeah, so I mean, like I said, there's a lot of fun stuff across the board, and those are just the big two, just DC and Marvel. There's other things we can look at as well. But I'm really pleased that you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, it's the very first Elseworld that I ever bought. Like I said, I ever read, and it does hold a special place in my heart because of that. It was my entry point to DC's imaginary tales of the modern era.
Just one last thing to kind of touch on that. This book could have easily had zero writing, zero dialogue, and just based on the visual storytelling, I feel like I would have come out with pretty close to the same idea. That's how good of a storytelling team that they are, because what was on the page translated to body language and facial expressions. I could have just not read the whole thing and just looked at the pictures and gotten the idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely benefited the book altogether to have Dave Gibbons, who was writing it, also be an accomplished illustrator. because
Absolutely.
he knew how to write it in such a way that you could convey it through the story being told, but also give the illustrator a lot to work with so they could tell the story as well, and not not tell the story they wanted them to tell. Like, oh, here's a story. I'm telling it my way. Now you tell it your way, and we'll match the two together. And I do feel like there was a lot of collaboration back and forth regarding that. And that's a plus. I mean, it shows a great working relationship, and honestly, a lot of trust for both creators.
Yeah.
You know, but no, that I'm really like I'm so pumped. Honestly, like I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it. And you know, we have mostly nowhere to go but up. Yeah, I know I mentioned Superboy's Legion. That's the one that really sticking out.
Well, what about what happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Is that an Elseworlds
No,
technically?
no,
No.
it's the last pre-crisis Superman story.
Yeah.
So it's basically the end of Superman's tale. The last Superman story. And then we go into John Byrne stuff. And that's fine. I mean, Alan Moore did his Alan Moore thing with that one. And you know, it's once again playing with the idea of deconstructing, and that's great. I don't mind a deconstruction, but you know, if that's what you constantly do, then maybe, you know, stop going to that well and stop being so purposefully cynical about the very same characters you're utilizing to make a name for yourself. I don't get it. I don't understand the disdain for, you know, these flights and tights and what have you, and then just saying like, oh, it's all shit. Why did you want to work on it then, dude?
Well, have you read Lost Girls? Probably not, right?
I own it.
Oh yeah, okay. I do too.
I own it. I own the big old slipcover edition.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It that was pretty good.
I read it
You know,
once. I read
yeah.
it once, and
I don't feel the need to read it again.
no. I felt
You're like, Captain Hook, what the fuck?
terrible while reading it. Like there were some parts where I was like, oh, and then there were other parts where I was like, oh.
Yeah, yeah. It's
You
written
will
well.
never, ever look at the Wizard of Oz the same way
No,
again.
yeah, that's the one. You know, or Alice in Wonderland, I suppose. But
No, Wizard of Oz was definitely the one that got jacked up for me, man. Like Alice in Wonderland, I was like, okay, that whatever.
that's messed up, man.
Wizard of Oz, nah. Like every dude, including including Henry. Come on, man. No.
Leo,
No.
it's weird. Like if we can protect you from
It's
it,
pornography. No, it's straight up. It is pornography. Like Alan
I think
Moore.
there's parts of it that are pretty good. But
No.
yeah,
I'm not saying that is in a detrimental way. I'm saying it's pornography. Alan Moore straight up was like, "Oh, this is pornography." Like we wanted to make like artistic pornography, and it is beautifully rendered. The artwork is outstanding, but some of the stuff that the artwork is depicting is hardcore.
yeah,
And
it's a little twisted.
and
So.
yeah, and not just hardcore in some instances, in some instances pretty fucking taboo. Um, you know, you can find out Dorothy's Uncle Henry isn't actually her uncle.
Yep,
He's her father.
he's the wizard.
He's the wizard. And the Emerald City was really like fucking Austin or something. It's like some fucking Midwest / Southern town. And the whole thing about her like clicking her heels together to get back home is because she fucking boned down her dad in a fucking hotel room after they
Oh
spent the
wow.
day together
Dude,
in
it's so
fucking
weird.
city.
Like
Oh yeah.
between that and the parts with Wendy, it's like I gotta go
Oh my
take a shower.
god. Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah, the Peter
I
Pan
don't think
stuff's
that'll
really
be
messed up too.
I don't think that'll be something that we cover on this podcast.
No, absolutely not. I no. I don't want to deal with even thinking about it. I want to
Yeah,
reread
I don't
it.
want to read that again. I don't think.
I bought it. I bought it for
Yeah.
a stupid amount of money, and I'm glad I did. But like, I had it in my bookshelf, and people would be like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Don't even bother. Don't read that. Just put it down," because it's got a nice. It's. I mean, it's big.
Yeah, it's
a
pretty.
couple
Yeah.
volumes, and it's like this beautiful like lavender slipcase that goes over these hardcover volumes. And like I said, you to see it, you'd be like, "Ooh, it's pretty." Like, I'm enticed by this. Let me look at it. Be like, "Ah, da, da, da. See with your eyes, not with your
I'm
hands."
like, read
Even where it
Saga.
is.
It's better.
Oh my god,
It's way better.
starting up again in January.
About damn time.
Yeah, well, they're allowed. They're allowed. By the way, did you notice that there's a Taco Bell commercial out that has a kid dressed up like
Yes, I
dudes
did
from Saga?
actually. Yeah,
Two of
they're
them.
both there. I actually just picked up a Funko Pop of the Will, so
Oh, that's
I
cool.
now
That's very cool. Yeah. So anyway, we can go into tangents here. Oh, Tangent Comics. That's something we can cover in the future too. And Amalgam. But yeah, so we'll get this wrapped up. Thank you everyone for indulging us in the last few minutes where we talked about literally everything else except Elseworlds and alternate tales. And we'll close it up. We'll start with these guys saying some stuff. Leo Pond, why don't you
Yeah,
tell
just
people about you and where they can find you or not?
I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. We got a bunch of shows on the network. A lot of awesome people doing a lot of awesome stuff, like these guys here, like Justin.
that's a me.
Worst Mario impression ever.
Hey, don't say that. We haven't heard Chris Pratt yet.
I was still thinking of Lost Girls. Sorry.
Christ.
Yeah, check out my Lost Girls podcast. No, it's don't do that. So, but yeah, you can check me out at Geek Life HQ, and we just hit our 100th episode, so you can check that out. It's kind of fun. Epic Tales from the Sewers is my Ninja Turtles podcast, and you can check that out. Also on Facebook, the Epic Shells Facebook group.
Excellent. I'm Brandon Powers, aka Powerful Brandon. You can check me out on the Wednesday night Dorkening podcast. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week. You can please join me over at the Powers Combined Facebook group, where we're just a bunch of geeks and dorks that get together to share info and memes, have a few laughs, have a good time. Our number one rule is don't be a jerk. If you violate that, you will be booted immediately. You can follow me on social media, Twitter at Brandon's Powers and Instagram at This Brandon Has Powers. And aside from those things, I've been hanging out with these two clowns every week. And we've been doing this. And we also have been doing the Dork Night podcast where we cover all things Batman. So check those out when they come across your peepers. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Take it easy.